What's your name?
Joseph Barkley.
Okay. And when is your birthday?
4/14/48.
Okay. And what is your address?
2167 Lanai Avenue, Bel Air Bluffs, Florida 33770.
Okay. And my name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for the Children's Coalition Incorporated. And I'm also the chairperson for the Palm Beach County Democratic Veterans Caucus of Florida. Okay, and let's see. What branch of the service were you in, sir?
Air Force,
Okay, and what rank were you when you separated?
Captain.
Okay, and where did you serve?
Well, my first assignment was at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, where I went to officer training school. And upon graduation from officer training school, I was assigned to Chanute Air Force Base, Illinois, where I went to aircraft maintenance officer technical school. And subsequent to that, then I served for the balance of my time in the service at McGuire Air Force Base, New Jersey.
And so I take it you enlisted.
I enlisted coming out of college, and then I went to school in San Antonio. I went to officer training school. That's a 9-month or 6-month, no, 3-month program.
Right.
And then from there, then I went to aircraft maintenance officer school.
Okay. Where were you living at the time that you entered
I was
service?
in college in Hartford, Connecticut. I went to Trinity College, Hartford, Connecticut. I enlisted in Hartford, and subsequently then was assigned, as I said, to officer training school, and then my first actual assignment was Chanute Air Force Base.
Right.
And when I went to Chanute, then we moved from Connecticut. I went back and got my wife and my child, and we went to Chanute, and we were there for approximately 8 months, going to officer school, or aircraft maintenance officer school.
Right. What was so what were you majoring in college?
I was a philosophy major with a minor in religion.
Okay.
My intent was to go to seminary. I was an Episcopalian. I was accepted at seminary, but I didn't have the money to go.
Okay.
So that's why I went into the service. At the time, 1970 was when I graduated from college. There was a depression, and there were no jobs available, and so going into the service was a logical thing to do.
Okay. Makes sense. Why did you pick the Air Force?
Well, that's a good question. My dad was a naval officer, and he was very upset that I didn't want to go in the Navy, but I had a wife and a child, and I didn't want to be away from home for long periods of time. And of course, if you're on a ship, that's what happens.
Right.
So the Air Force was more of a traditional job. It might not have been 9 to 5, but at least you were always in the area of the base, and so you weren't far from home.
Right. That's right, just like a regular job.
That's right. Well, in my case, I was an aircraft maintenance officer, so we worked 3 shifts, but at least it was a regular place. I lived on base housing, and so you were a mile from the job, basically.
Right, exactly. Okay. Tell me about your training in officers training school, OTS.
Okay, in officer training school, as I said, I was a philosophy major and a minor in religion, so liberal arts, in other words.
Right.
But I seemed to do pretty well at school academically, and so I didn't graduate necessarily at the top of my class, but I always did very well, and I ended up being an OT major, officer trainee major, worked my way up through the ranks of my squadron while I was at officer training school, and ended up being, a fairly high-ranking officer in the officer training school ranking system.
Okay. Do you remember any of your instructors?
Captain Vidal, I believe his name was our commander for our flight, and he was a very good guy. And but most of the other officers, no, they just they were assigned there, and many of them rotated in and out during even the times when we were there. So no, I don't remember all those particular folks.
Gotcha. Well, that's okay.
Mm.
And how long was that? That was 3 months?
3
12
months.
weeks? 12 weeks?
Yeah, I basically I enlisted in April 26th. I then reported for duty on July 26th, and so I went to the local base at local recruiting office in Hartford. They took us by train to New Haven, and then from New Haven they took us by bus to JFK, I believe it was, and then we flew to San Antonio and bussed over to Lackland, and then I was there for that period of time and really didn't leave the base during that period of time.
Okay.
And then from there, once I graduated from officer training school, then I went on to Chinook. I went home to Connecticut and then back to Chinook.
Hi.
Hello, my name is
And
Navek.
we're, yeah.
Interrupting. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's fine. Yeah, just, thank you. No problem. Okay, so,
All right. So that was basically it. And at Chinook, the war was going on, and so we actually had 4 shifts. You went 6 in the morning to noon, you went noon to 6, you went 6 to midnight, or you went midnight to 6, and rotated around. I lived in officers' housing again there, and it was a short ride to the base every day, to the classroom. We did not have to march. The enlisted men had to march to do class, but we were able to drive our car to the class. And so while I was there, made some good friends. And there again, I did pretty well academically. I graduated 3rd in my class behind a fellow who had been a jet engine mechanic for SAC for 12 years. And the second place guy was a Boilermaker from Purdue, an engineer, an electronics engineer from Purdue. So being a philosophy major and graduating 3rd was not a bad deal there at all.
not at all.
And so there again, we lived on base. It was fairly routine. And then once I graduated from aircraft maintenance officer school, then we stayed one extra about 30 to 60 days, I'm going to say, because my wife was pregnant with our second child, and so we had to stay there. So I went to another school. I went to Jet Engine Accident Investigation School, and there I met a lot of officers from other countries. I remember specifically there were folks from Egypt and from Italy and South America. There was a fellow from Taiwan who had been a pilot, and he was flying an F-80 out over the Pacific one time, and his engine light went on. He was out of oil, and so he had to make a decision whether to bail or to run the engine dry, and he ran the engine dry and got home safe. But I remember that war story, so that was a good one.
Right, I hear you. Wow. Okay. Let's see. So, what was the title of your AFSC anyway?
Aircraft maintenance officer. It's my AFC was 4021 initially, and then became 4024.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So where are all the places that you traveled while you were in the service?
Okay, well, again, I lived a fairly mundane existence in the service. After I graduated from Chinook, we moved to New Jersey. What happened was, when I graduated, there was another fellow in my class who was from Florida. He had an assignment to McGuire Air Force Base. I had an assignment to Homestead.
Right.
And we switched so that the guy from Florida could go to Florida, and the guy whose family always had a shore place in New Jersey went to New Jersey. And so it worked out well. And so I was stationed at McGuire for the balance of my career. And while I was there, we lived on base housing. I did have one additional stint where I was an administrative officer, squadron commander for my squadron.
Oh, really?
For about, I'll say, 9 months or so. most of the time was spent as an aircraft maintenance officer. I was either on the flight line or I was in the launch room, the control room. So and we launched about 7 or 8 airplanes a day. We at that time, I think we originally had 43 141s. We lost one, and so we had 41 or 42 the balance of the time.
Okay. What did you do when you went on leave?
Well, when I went on leave, I didn't really use that much leave, but my mother lived an hour away in Wilmington, and so I didn't really have a lot of leave time that I used for anything in particular. My wife's family was in Connecticut, and so we went up there once in a while, but really didn't do much. I was in the MBA program with Southern Illinois University. I received my MBA while I was there, so I was going to school all the time while I was there.
Okay.
So I was always working or going to school, and so I didn't really spend a lot of time off base or anything like that.
How many kids do you have?
2 at that time. Then we adopted a third.
Oh, really?
After I got out of the service, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. What did your wife do? Did she just?
My wife was a nurse,
Oh.
and so she could work odd hours and things like that. But most of the time, because our kids were young, she was at home.
Right. Right. Okay. Tell me about a couple of your. Well, obviously you never went in combat.
No.
Okay, great.
No.
That's not a problem. So that means you weren't a POW ever either.
No.
Did you receive any awards, medals, or citations?
Nothing to speak of. No, there's no bravery or anything like that for being an
Right.
aircraft maintenance officer.
I understand. All right. Did you ever have anything to do with any battle plans since you were an officer?
No.
How was the food?
Well,
When you-
I didn't live in the barracks, so
Right.
so there really wasn't much there.
So
I wasn't the guy that spent a lot of time at the NCO, the officers club, so it didn't really matter. I mean, it was just pretty much standard family life. The one thing that I did do that was an additional duty, I was also an honor guard commander, which is unfortunate. I had to go to a lot of funerals. I had a command of about 18 people that I took on basically a school bus, a military school bus,
right.
and we went to the local church or funeral home of wherever this particular young officer or enlisted man was going to be buried.
Right.
And so that was an additional duty that I had. It was very sad.
Yeah.
And we, of course, in 141s brought in a lot of bodies, caskets from Dover, and brought them into New Jersey, and then we took them, as I say, in honor guard in many cases to the particular funeral home for that particular person.
What years did you serve?
70 to 74.
Okay.
So basically, after I got out of tech school, 71 to 74 was my time where I was actually doing what I was supposed to be doing, which was, launching airplanes.
Where were the bodies coming from?
Vietnam.
Right. What was the? I hate asking you. What kind of rate? At what rate were these?
Well, we were probably doing 1 or 2 funerals a month, but that's only a small percentage of the number of bodies that came in.
This is one particular place. That's how many funerals.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Because I wasn't there all 24 hours, so they could come in on different flights during the course of the day.
Okay.
But usually they came in 2 or 3 on a plane at a time. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And so okay. Let's see. Did you have everything that you needed to do your job throughout your service career?
Yeah, I had very good officers. One particular gentleman, Colonel Patrick, was a very top drawer guy, and I worked for him for several years, and he was an excellent officer. And so everything I needed was fine. I never had a conflict where I couldn't reschedule in order to make my classes for the MBA program. If I needed leave or whatever, it was always fine. So I would say overall, I didn't enjoy being in the service per se, but I certainly had no issues with any of my officers, my commanders.
Okay. Yeah, that was the next
Yeah,
question.
no, they're all quite high quality people. I was very impressed with their integrity and their commitment to duty and all those sorts of things. I felt very much that they did an excellent job.
What about your staff, the enlisted?
Surprisingly, the most of the people were really high quality people. A lot of integrity, a lot of people really committed to their mission. Good mechanics. They were very careful about the way in which they went about their work, whether it was working on engines, landing gear, electronics, avionics, whatever the case might be. I thought they all did an excellent job. And I was very impressed with some of those people. They would have certainly been people I would hire in my business if I had a business at that time.
Really?
Yeah. There were a few bad apples, of course, but
Well,
that's true in any kind of business.
right.
But I never felt that in any way a mission was deleteriously affected. I never felt that in any way any aircraft would be in danger or anything like that. Mostly it was things like maybe too much time off hours, hanging out the NCO club or that kind of thing.
Right.
That's really all it boiled down to. I thought overall everybody was very highly qualified. They were trained well. They had all the tools and everything that they needed, and the Air Force, the 141 was a particularly good airplane anyway, and so it was it wasn't maintenance free by any stretch of the imagination, but it was very well maintained, and it was a great flying airplane.
Okay. You say that was a C-141?
C-141, yes.
I flew on one of those once while I was in Europe.
Yep. A little bit noisy if you're riding in the back, but
Right.
very good flying airplane. Very overpowered. It would go a lot faster. Colonel Patrick said he could have landed one of them on one engine if it
Wow.
was an inboard engine. So I mean that's pretty darn amazing.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What was I going to ask you? Did you have any casualties in your unit?
No.
Anybody?
No, we weren't in any kind of dangerous
Well,
situation.
No, I mean, anybody get hurt on the job?
Oh, I'm sure that some people got hurt on the job,
Yeah.
but what it would have been relatively a minor thing. I mean, somebody might have gotten injured, doing some kind of thing with a tool or something like that. But we didn't have any, crashes or any kind of thing like that where,
Okay.
at least that I was aware of,
Right.
that would in any way harm somebody, in a major kind of a way.
Right. Right. Okay. What did you do for fun or entertainment? I know you had a family, so
Yeah.
what did you do
Well,
with kids?
well, first of all, we would visit relatives.
Uh-huh.
Second thing is Philadelphia was about 45 minutes away, so you could
Okay.
go to Philadelphia and walk around in the colonial area and that kind of thing. We went to the beach, the shore.
Oh.
It's called in New Jersey,
Yeah.
but those kinds of things. That was about I would say an hour you could get to the beach from there.
That's that bad.
And of course we would go up to visit my wife's family up in Connecticut and Massachusetts.
Uh-huh.
So that was more of a several day trip.
Right.
But there were plenty of things to do, and McGuire was not remote like some military bases are remote. McGuire
Right.
was just off of I-270, 295, and so you could go north to New York or south to Maryland or Virginia or wherever if you wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. do you have any memorable experiences that stick out in your mind? A couple of those memories, either humorous or otherwise.
No, well, I think overall, I especially enjoyed the folks I was with in the MBA program. They were from both Fort Dix and McGuire, and we had good camaraderie. What we did is form the way the MBA program worked was the instructor came to us, and so they would fly in on a Friday, so we would go to school Friday, Saturday, Sunday, have a midterm or turn in a report or a paper at the third day, and then 3 weeks later the instructor would fly in again, and you would have 2 more days of instruction and then a final exam or a final paper or a final presentation, and it might be a group presentation. So as a result, we got together. There were 4 to 6 people in the group, and we got together and worked out our presentations and so on, so that everybody really sort of got to know each other pretty well, much like a study group in a regular college environment.
Right.
So it worked out very well, and those folks were very enjoyable. A lot of them were also, lieutenants and captains and majors, so we had a lot of camaraderie developed by that kind of thing. So that was a good way to really get to know people.
Oh, okay, good, cool. Okay. So, what was going on in your life in '74?
Well,
when you were getting ready to separate.
So in '74, I graduated from the MBA program, and I got accepted into the doctoral program at University of Missouri, Columbia, and so got out of the service. The service moved us to Missouri, and I spent a year there. Anyway, so I did that for a year. I didn't really like it. I didn't like the idea of being a professor. The professors, I wouldn't call them bored, but they were not really that excited about what they were doing. And I didn't really want to have that kind of unexcited life. So I started making some phone calls and so on. I got a job with Division of Macy's in their executive training program, and I went back to New Jersey and worked for Macy's for about a year and a half. And then from there I went into the financial planning business with a company called Connecticut General, which later became Cigna. And so I've been in the insurance business since 1976. So I've now been in the insurance business for 41 years.
Wow.
What
did you do for Macy's?
I ran a men's department.
Okay.
You go to the executive training squad. That was 3 or 4 months of going to the home office in Newark. So we had to drive to Newark every day. So 2 or 3 people in my area of central Jersey, and we drove to the train station together, rode the train there, and then rode a trolley to the Macy's department store. It's called Bamberger's. There was a different division. It doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And so we did that, and then we all got assigned to different stores, and I got assigned to a store just outside of Philadelphia and for running the men's department. And so I did that for about a year and a half, and again, I had a promotion, and they wouldn't let me get promoted because it was coming into the Christmas season, so I quit. and that's when I went into the insurance business. I had interviewed with Connecticut General beforehand while I was getting out of the service.
Right.
I actually had interviewed with them because they were, at the time, they were giving early outs, and interviewers were coming to like job fairs at the base. And I had interviewed with them at that time. They had actually sent me to Hartford to join their executive training squad then. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. And I did the other for a while, but then I came back in and did it. So anyway, that worked out pretty well. And I did that for a long time in New Jersey. And you win a sales contest or something, you go to a Florida resort, and we were also Phillies fans, so we came down to Clearwater to go to Phillies games for spring training. So as a result, I finally convinced my wife to move down here, and we've been down here now 12 years.
Okay. Was it hard?
To move down here?
Well,
No.
convincing her.
Yeah, sure. I was convincing her for like 25 years.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was another job, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you do any? Did you? Okay. Oh, you finished your PhD, I would imagine.
No, I have a second master's. I got another master's that's insurance related,
Oh.
and then I went to law school. So I have a law degree also. Yeah. My wife and I also had a law practice in addition to the insurance business.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. You're
Yeah.
also an attorney.
Yeah.
What type of law?
Not here. I'm New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Here, what happens when you're in the insurance business and you have those kind of credentials? I have a lot of other industry credentials too that I just worked out over time.
Right.
You get called into the home office to be an inside guy, to go train people out in the field. So I did a fair amount of traveling and that kind of thing, and teaching a lot of classes and so on.
Right.
And so as a result of having a law degree, I ended up being a home office executive part of the time as well. You spend some time in the home office, you spend some time out in the field, you spend some time in the home office, you spend some time in the field.
Right.
That over the course of the years. And then about 10 years, well, a little more than 10 years ago, I got tired of the in the home office, out of the home office, that kind of thing. So my wife and I bought a insurance agency. And so for the last 10 years, we've been general insurance agents.
Right. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Wow. So that came in handy.
Yep.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you maintain any close friendships from the military?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. The answer is no. My dad, my dad was a dive bomber pilot in the war, and he actually maintained relations with his gunner, for years. The guy lived in Oklahoma. I never met the guy, but I mean, I knew that they kept in touch.
Right.
But in my line of work, what I was doing, you're constantly getting shuffled in and out to different bases. The war was going on. There were a lot of things. You get 1-year assignments to go to Thailand or to Vietnam or wherever, and so people were coming in and out, and there was really no way to build that kind of personal relationship. So the answer is no.
Okay. Okay. All right. Do you belong to any veterans organizations now?
Yes. I'm a member of Post 119 of
American Legion.
And it's right across the street from my office, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And the other thing that I would say that I do is keep in touch generally with veterans organizations, but I get the magazine and all that kind of thing. But no, I don't. There's no other special things that we do.
Okay, except for the.
Oh well, I'm the president of the local caucus.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, president of Pinellas County Democratic Veterans Caucus. Yes,
Okay.
but that's part of what that picnic was today.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a very small caucus. We have, I think, 17 members right now. We're trying to build it,
Right.
but there frankly are not that many veterans anymore. Most of the people never went in the service,
Okay.
so
All right.
it's not a giant organization.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've managed to accumulate. I think we got 19 or 20
Hmm.
down in Palm Beach County. There's a lot of veterans around. I'm just trying to get out and about and make it
Right.
happen. So-
Well, a lot of people are motivated to do anything other than they'll go to a meeting or something like that, but
Yeah.
there's not a lot of other things going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a couple more questions.
Sure.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Well, I was not particularly pro-Vietnam War anyway. I could have gone to ROTC while I was at Trinity and saved my parents a lot of money because it was a very expensive school. But I didn't really care for it. I had no intention to go into the service except for the fact that there were no jobs when I got out of college.
Right.
But I never did anything anti-war or anything like that. I am a member of the Democratic Party and I am a progressive, so therefore I'm not particularly interested in some of the things that are going on right now, like in Afghanistan or Iraq or those kinds of things. I thought those things were a big waste of money and a lot of lives that were unnecessarily taken because of that. But I haven't done any demonstrations or anything like that. I just generally do that as much as I can through my voting.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was curious how you felt about the present political climate.
Well, the present political climate is terrible right now. I mean, it's Democrats are not able to control either house, and presidency right now is in terrible disarray. So therefore, there's not a lot we can do about it right now except try to recoup our previous positions in some of the offices and some of the elected official locations that we had. I happen to be a local elected official, but I'm an elected official at the municipal level, which is nonpartisan. So therefore, I can't do anything about it locally. And I don't know how familiar you are with Florida's rules, but under the you have to resign to run to go for a higher office. So if I wanted to go for a higher office and lost, I would actually be losing two positions because I'd lose my position where I am now, and then I would also lose the new position, which could harm the party further. So I haven't run for higher office at this point.
Okay. Can I ask you about two specific issues? What
Sure.
your opinion is? All right. One is on education. All right. How do you feel about the new person who is in charge of education for the country? And the other-
DeVos?
Yes.
Yeah. It's hard. It's the simplest way to put it. First of all, she's a homeschool person herself. She is for charter schools, which drain money from the public school system. And she's putting into place people who are not any better than she is as far as the way in which education will be done. So education is going to suffer tremendously over the next few years until we can get somebody else in there.
Okay, and I'm just curious as to what is your opinion of the immigration issue?
Again, it's hard. This country was based on immigrants. Immigrants of whatever form came from someplace else. The only people here were Native Americans, so everybody came from someplace else. So to cut off immigration is totally wrong. You lose all the tremendous energy and intellect and everything else that fresh blood brings into the body politic that's the American people. And so it's just terribly wrong to cut off the ability for people to come to this country under some kind of neurotic thing that everybody's going to be trying to destroy the country. There's always going to be a few bad apples, and you got to live with that. But most of the people that come here are honest, legitimate people that want to make a better life for their family. So it's just totally wrong and very, very short-sighted to cut off immigration.
In that same vein, do you feel, okay, immigration and education, do you think the cuts that they're attempting to make, and I'm sure win or lose, there's going to be a certain amount of money taken off the table anyway, eventually I would imagine if they are able to even start cutting on that. I mean, I just take it for granted that there's a for instance, a $9.2 billion education cut that's on the table, that there's possibly, that maybe half of that or 3/4 of it or 30% of it, will, happen if I don't think they even care about
It's got to get through both houses.
a full win.
Yeah.
I hear you,
Yeah.
but through the bartering and the compromising. So, but my question is, on both of those issues, do you feel like it's about more? Is it more financial, or is there more racism, or a combination of both?
Okay. I haven't thought about it in terms of racism as a primary issue. It's clear that racism plays a part, especially at the local level. But the main thing is it's very short-sighted to cut off education funding, because education funding is what drives the growth in knowledge, in invention, in all kinds of innovations that happen. And so it's just very, very foolish to cause education to get reduced funding. That's number one. But number two, the other issue is how you use the funding that is there, and draining it off to schools that are owned by many of the politicians' families. So what they're really doing is doing a fund transfer to their own families, because they own the schools of these charter schools. It's just unconscionable, and it's a terrible way to go. And nobody seems to be as concerned about it as we are here at the local level, but we see it all the time.
Right. Last question. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Okay. That question I figured you would ask. Being an aircraft maintenance officer had nothing to do with what I do in my job, what I've done for the last 40 some years. But what it did do, I think my officer training did several important things. First of all, it made me realize that I'm capable of doing any kind of thing, because of the fact that I'm able to develop the skills and other qualities that are necessary to do the job and do it well. I never thought I would go into the insurance business. I never thought I would go into the retail business. I never thought I would go into the law business. I never thought I would go into the politics business. But I've done well in all those fields simply because the Air Force taught me that I could do whatever I had to do and do it well. And so I think going to officer schools was ironic, because it was not something I intended to do, but it turned out to be very influential in my success over the course of my life. And so even though I felt those 4 years were somewhat of a, I don't want to say waste of time, but used up some portion of my life without being really totally productive. I mean, I never made any decent money or anything like that out of it, but I did get an MBA, I bought my first house, and a lot of other things like that through the service.
Right.
So I owe the service a lot, because over the course of my life I got a good head start by virtue of the things that I was taught. And a lot of it is really just psychologically simply telling me that I could do whatever was necessary to do a job and do it well. So I think I owe the service a debt of gratitude, and I'm glad I was in it. I just didn't think about it at that time.
Okay, well, do you feel like you left anything out of this interview that you'd like to share?
No, but I am happy that somebody is doing what you're doing, because I think that's important. What's unfortunately happened is we've lost a lot of information and a lot of knowledge by not having people be in the service. I was sort of at the tail end of the draft. My draft number was high. I was in like 260 or something like that. I don't remember now.
Right.
So I didn't have to go in the service. I went in because of financial necessity.
Mm-hmm.
But think what it did do is it gave a formative pattern that other people could have used effectively. I think a lot of people drift aimlessly because they don't have that foundation, and if everybody had to go in the service for 3 or 4 years, it probably would be a good thing, not a bad thing. It's just that it's very expensive to operate a military when, you know, there's no war going on. What we're doing right now is we're putting the same people, recycling them through the process of being in Iraq or in Afghanistan, and then sending them back for a second and a third and a fourth term. Whereas in the Vietnam era, everybody went one time and that was it. Right. And so I think we would be better off if we had a larger military, maybe shorter enlistment periods, maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
But just everybody get a head start by doing that. Think of all the kids from poor neighborhoods who would get an education, would get their GEDs, would get maybe a junior college credential, that kind of thing. If kids did that, and they'd be a lot farther along than kids who are looking for a job at a low end type of job and can't find any work. So that's when they get into trouble, and that's when you know, they just feel that their life is worthless. And so I think if you had that formative period of time, it would be very beneficial for the country as a whole, and for so many of the people who feel like they're sort of being left behind.
Okay, well, sure we could talk for another 3 hours about all this stuff, but anyway, I want to thank you for your service,
Mm-hmm.
and thank you very much for this interview.